Attorney General Pam Bondi announced today a key participant in the 2012 attack on the U.S. compound in Libya is in custody, and that attack killed 4 Americans. It became a divisive political issue for then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Pam Bondi said Zubar al-Bakush was brought to the U.S. just this morning.
Al-Bakush will now face American justice on American soil. We will prosecute this alleged terrorist to the fullest extent of the law. He'll face charges related to murder, terrorism, arson, among others. Let this case serve as a reminder. If you commit a crime against the American people anywhere in this world, President Trump's Justice Department will find you. It might not happen overnight, but it will happen. You can run, but you cannot hide.
I want to bring in CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Dagata. Charlie was the first correspondent and first Western journalist in Benghazi. So Charlie, just how significant is this arrest? And can you walk us through your experience covering the story?
Sure. It was certainly one of the most memorable experiences of my life. We'll get into that in a second. So I think we have to look at the fact that this happened on September 11, 2012. So this is 14 years ago, roughly, that they've brought what they think this suspect to justice. And the mastermind, or suspected mastermind in that attack, I got to look back at my notes because it's been that long, Ahmed Abu Qatala, he was actually arrested by special forces in 2014, brought to justice. He's here in the United States, in D.C., and he's serving a prison sentence as we speak. So I was in Kabul September 11th, that's for September 11th, and I had to make my way from Afghanistan into Benghazi when I had heard this had happened. We didn't have that much information. We were relying on local reports and fixers on the ground. When we got to the consulate, we just saw these burnt out buildings, and that was where Ambassador Chris Stevens and Sean Smith from the State Department lost their lives. They were actually trapped inside. The picture that we got from locals on the ground, it first looked like it had been a demonstration, September 11th, anti-American demonstration that had just cranked up and turned into violence. So they jumped over the consulate walls, which is easy to do. As a matter of fact, we got in that way. It was closed and we just jumped over the gate. And then what happened, and this is the extraordinary part, there are 4 individuals, 4 Americans that were killed that night. There could have been dozens of Americans who were killed that night because local militia, friendly militia, and local SEAL teams were able to evacuate Americans from that consulate area to an annex, which is about a half mile away. Now, when we got there, that place had clearly come under attack. And without getting into the gritty detail of what it takes to launch an attack like this, there were suggestions, or there was enough evidence to show that this had been pre-planned, because things like setting mortars and using a recoilless rifle, it's called, in order to take those attacks, that would have taken targeting. That isn't something you do on the night. That isn't something that you just make up. So they would have had the location. By the way, that annex was supposedly a secret location. So that annex came under attack too, and dozens of Americans were evacuated to the airport, again, with local Navy SEALs, then CIA, and 2 of these men lost their lives, Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty. And, you know, we throw the word hero out a lot, but they gave their lives fighting off an armed attack with small arms fire, grenades, mortars, again, this recoilless rifle. We saw their bloodied uniforms on top of the annex roof. It really painted a picture of what went on that night. And of course, we have covered, and there has been lots of controversy as to whether the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, et cetera, had enough security at that consulate, because they had underestimated, in light of what had happened inside Syria, underestimated the Islamic extremists in that neighborhood, the anti-American sentiment in that neighborhood. And honestly, Ambassador Stevens did too. We spoke to locals and they said, this guy would play tennis with us. You know, he would walk the streets, and that was kind of who he was. He wanted to outreach. He didn't want to be behind the blast walls and the barbed wire. So that are the events that unfolded. And again, being the first ones there, part of our reporting went into that intelligence gathering and some of the decisions that were made because of what happened in overrunning that consulate. So yes, It's interesting that this is 14 years later. This is clearly still a hot investigation. They brought in the mastermind, but there are still individuals that are suspected of being directly involved. And this wasn't a demonstration that had turned violent. This was a planned attack on the consulate and the annex afterward.
Wow, just some amazing information there, Charlie. Thank you so much for joining us today.